They say the dead know more than the living, and sometimes they know secrets that should never be spoken. In a forgotten village, deep in the belly of Africa, the wind once carried a name on its breath, a name no living person had dared to speak in decades. And yet, when the graveyard stirred and the bones of the buried began to shift, when the silence broke with the clatter of something unnatural moving in the dark, it was that very name that echoed through the night, a name known only to the dead and to the guilty. The villagers who heard it swore their blood turned to ice, for the sound was not the wail of a spirit, nor the cry of an animal. It was deliberate, a voice stripped of flesh, yet clear as the day it had once spoken. And from that moment on, the people knew. They had awakened something that would not rest. This is not just a tale of bones and whispers. It is a story of betrayal, of curses, of memory that clings tighter than the grave, a warning that when the living forget, the dead will return to remind them. And so I ask you, if one night you heard your own name called from the shadows of a graveyard, would you answer, or would you pray silence is enough to save you? The village of Akwan lay cradled between vast grasslands and the roots of ancient baobabs. By day, the people thrived, tilling the red earth, weaving baskets, pounding millet to the rhythm of song. But by night, shadows stretched long, and the people turned their thoughts to the unseen. The ancestors walked among them in the hush of the wind, in the rustle of grass, in the flicker of firelight. Shrines stood at every corner, offerings laid in clay pots, prayers whispered into the trees. At the heart of Akwan were two brothers, Okoro, the elder, proud and hungry for power, and Jareh, the younger, gentle yet wise. Where Okoro saw leadership as his right, Jareh saw it as a burden to be carried with humility. The people loved Jareh's kindness, and Okoro, though he smiled in public, burned with envy in private. And so, one night, when the moon was dark and the village slept, Okoro crept into his brother's hut. The calabash of water beside Jareh's mat glistened in the firelight. Okoro's hand trembled as he tipped a vial of bitter root into it. The next morning, Jareh was found lifeless, his lips blackened, his chest still. Okoro wept before the people, tearing his garments in false grief, but his heart beat with triumph. His path to power was clear. Jareh's funeral was hurried, almost cold. No feast, no chant of remembrance, no songs of the ancestors. Okoro forbade it. He ordered silence, as if burying his brother's name would erase the crime. And so the earth swallowed Jareh without honor, without the breath of prayer. Seasons passed, but the land remembers. Crops withered at the edges. The rivers grew low, though rain fell in other villages. Hunters returned with empty hands. Their spears dulled against prey that seemed to vanish into thin air. Mothers clutched their children tighter, for sickness crept through the huts like a crawling shadow. At first, the villagers whispered it was only misfortune. But then at night came the sound, a rattle beneath the earth, bones shifting, a clatter too deliberate to dismiss. And then came the voice. It was a night of new moon. The sky was black as spilled ink. Those who ventured near the graveyard swore. They saw the earth stirring like a chest rising to breathe. They ran, but not before they heard it. A name, spoken in a voice with no lungs, no tongue, no flesh. Jareh. From that night on, the hauntings grew. Children woke screaming, claiming they saw tall, thin figures at the edges of their huts, watching silently. Livestock vanished, their bones found days later, arranged in strange spirals the living could not understand. Men woke gasping, clawing at their throats, as if invisible fingers had pressed against them in the night. And still Okoro denied. He shouted down the frightened, called them liars, threatened punishment. But his hands shook, his voice cracked, for he alone knew the truth. And the dead do not forgive. If you're still listening, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what secret would the dead call out if they rose tonight? If this tale chills you, subscribe now, because the spirits are listening and the next story may carry your name. The nights grew unbearable. The air thickened with the stench of decay. And then one night, a scream tore through the village. The people ran and found a young man lying stiff, his eyes wide, his lips blue, carved into the soil beside him, by a hand no human could see, was one word. Jareh. The villagers broke. They begged Okoro to confess, to tell them what he had done. But he shouted louder, his eyes wild, his guilt gnawing through his pride. And that night, the graveyard erupted. The earth split open. Bones clawed their way free, clattering like insects. Piece by piece, they assembled into the shape of a man, a hollow skull, sockets glowing faintly with fire that was not of this world. Its jaw rattled, teeth clicking, before it spoke again. Jareh. The villagers screamed, scattering like leaves in the wind, but no one escaped the sound. It followed them, curling into their ears, searing itself into their hearts. The skeleton stepped forward, each movement jerky yet unstoppable, and as its bony arms stretched toward the chief, Okoro fell to his knees. "Forgive me, brother," he sobbed. "Forgive me." But forgiveness is not given where none was earned. The bones lunged, their hollow frame wrapped around Okoro with strength greater than flesh. He screamed as he was dragged into grave, clawing at the dirt, his cries swallowed by the earth that had waited for him all along. When the soil closed again, silence fell. But it was not peace. It was a silence of wounds unhealed. The next morning, the villagers gathered, pale and trembling. They buried Jareh again, this time with chants, with offerings, with tears that burned with regret. They carved his name into wood, into stone, into memory. But the curse had left its mark. Even now, they say, when the wind sweeps across the graveyard, you can hear the rattle of bones. And sometimes, if you listen closely, you will hear a name whispered, not in anger, but in warning. For the dead do not forget. A name is a tether, a bridge between worlds. And if you abandon the memory of the departed, they will rise to remind you. So tonight, when you lay your head to rest, ask yourself this. If in your dreams you hear your name whispered by a voice you do not know, will you answer? Or will you pray the dead don't remember you first? If this story has left you looking over your shoulder, then know this. You are not alone. The spirits walk with us, and every tale told here is a reminder. Subscribe now and share this warning, because the next tale may call for you.